recession don't come every year, lah, right? It only comes once in every 10 years. So as much as there are a lot of challenges right now, actually it's also the best time to pick up what I call grade A properties. Meaning to say the properties that can buy and hold for long term, so that we can get positive cash flow property as well as to get capital appreciation properties. So when Neil actually asked me some of the questions that he was seeing, I just feel what's the word? I just feel disheartened, lah. If I spend so much effort trying to help my mentees to get them in the right situation, only having to see them and witness them to make a wrong decision, buying the wrong property, despite you know how emotion will make us very confident, very gung-ho, and then we just want to chong in front. But yeah, this is where I wanted to step into sort of ground not only him but all the 10K Challenger community. Yeah. Some of the main pointers to basically guide you for you to be able to pick at least a grade A or grade B property. So how do we benefit from properties in the next 6 months? Essentially, it's come down to the criteria of how you select property. So today I'm going to share with you or ask a few questions on how do we actually pick grade A and grade B properties, right? Okay, so let's start. As a disclaimer, whatever I'm going to share with you actually comes from my own experience. Like I say, I'm not a property guru. I'm just a property investor here to share some of the things that I did right and some of the things that I made mistakes so that you can learn. So first thing first, you need to ask yourself, do you want to buy that property for investment to keep, or do you want to buy to flip? Buy to flip means to buy to sell, right? So I am a type of person who likes to buy to keep. Previously, I think I didn't learn properly. I tried to buy a few properties to flip. Unfortunately, couldn't flip it. So eventually, I also keep it. Because if you understand that question, right, the strategy is very different for property investment to keep and property investment to flip. And mostly what I'm going to share in the next 45 minutes is mainly to buy to keep. Yeah, because that's my strength, right? So the second thing, once you decided, if let's say you were to buy to keep, of course, if you want to buy to flip, then I may not be the best person to answer your question. Yeah, so maybe you want to find another guru that can help you, right? If you want to buy to keep, there's always this question of people asking, like, what is the right yield? Yield here, right? Just let me explain a little bit. Yield here is the rental over your property purchase price. So if let's say you're earning or if your rental income is 2,000, right? 2,000 times 12 is 24,000. 24,000, let's say a property price is 240,000. So you divide by that, then that is the property rental yield. So if you use that calculation, it's 10%. And I've always got this question from Property Virgin is that what is the right yield to look for? When I first started investing in 2008, at those time, 8% yield is actually very good. Actually, even today, if you can find 8% yield, is very good, right? So I'll explain later why 8% and also what is the relationship and how do you get 8%. Later, I'm just going to share my screen in a little while. Actual fact is that if you want, of course, the higher the yield, the better, because the higher rental income and then the lower the property price, it means that you have a higher chance of getting a positive cash flow. A positive cash flow means that if, let's say, you earn a rental income of 2,000, after minusing your bank installment, after minusing off your property, condo maintenance, assessment, quit rent, etc., and you still have a positive cash flow. Right? Later, I'm going to show you some examples. So it used to be 8% is because when you get an 8%, a high chance that you actually can get a positive cash flow. And those days before the lockdown, or even in 2010 or 2008, interest rate was about 4%. So that's the reason why we set the rental yield at 8% is because if you do the math, 8% normally is the positive cash flow. So later I'll also share with you how to decide what is the rental yield that we should aim for right now. Recently, I read Peter Yee's book. So he actually mentioned this very interesting thing, which he makes it very simple for property investor or even property investor margin. Okay, see, for a high-rise residential property, he says in his book, the yield is preferably 3 times the fixed deposit rate. So actually, if right now the FD rate is 2%, so the property rental yield you want to target for is 6%, or 2 times 3 is 6 months. And for landed residential property, just now it's high-rise. Landed residential property, the yield preferably it should be twice the FD rate. So that means if now it's 2%, for landed residential property, you should be aiming for 4%. Yeah. So imagine those days when the FD rate was 4%. 3 times for high-rise residential is 12% rental yield. 12% is very, very good positive cash flow already. Because those days I was just aiming for 8%. Yeah. So this is actually a very good rule of thumb. And he mentioned also for commercial property, right, is 2 times FD rate. So it's about 4%. So that means shop lot, double story shop lot, triple story shop lot, if the property price is 1 million, 4% rental yield is about 40,000 per year. So it works out to about 3,005. Yeah, 3,004. All right. So that is the target for rental yield. So number 3 is if you were to buy to keep, obviously you have to rent it to somebody, right? So when you rent it to somebody, you need to ask yourself who is your tenant, who is your target market. So in business, we always learn about target market, right? Do you target students? Do you target working adults? Do you target factory workers? You need to be very clear before you actually place down the deposit and try to buy the property, right? So if you're buying commercial property, right, who is your target market? Are you facing the front row? Because you attract different businesses. Are you facing the back row? Because you attract different businesses, right? Is your business or is your property attracting F&B, banks, what else? Services, Dolby. Yeah, so you've got to be very clear. And my experience is that in commercial property, you need to be 90% spot on compared to residential. So what I mean by that is that if, let's say residential, if you buy within that locality or within the taman, right, even if you buy the wrong unit, it is still okay because generally residential is not so competitive that you must get the one facing on the main road with frontage. But unfortunately for commercial property, it's so specific that the moment you get the wrong unit as well, it can make or break your investment. So I actually had I learned a very big lesson, because I brought my residential investment strategy into commercial, which was, it sucks, you wouldn't want to follow what I went through. Yeah. So that is a third strategy. Who is your target market if let's say you were to buy to keep? So the fourth criteria, are you the type who wants to buy or invest into residential, or do you want to go commercial? Now, this question actually depends on 2 things. Number 1 is your funds. Do you have sufficient funds to put down the down payment? This is talking about traditional, don't talk about creative financing yet, right? For residential, obviously, the funds, the outlay is much lower than a commercial property. The second criteria is actually your risk tolerance. Can you tolerate higher risk, especially when we talk about commercial? Like I said, even trying to find which particular unit, it has to be very spot on. That means if you spot the wrong one, you pick the wrong property, it can make or break your investment, right? And because commercial compared to residential, generally the amount is much bigger, right? Right now in KL, I think you can't find maybe a 1 million shop lot in a prime location, right? Prime location, you're probably expecting like 3-4 million, right? So are you able to have that kind of funding to begin looking at commercial or not? If not, possibly you want to look at residential. How do you find a property that assure that you are? Actually, nothing is assured. Actually, this one have to do a lot of homework in terms of once you understand question or strategy 1, 2, and 3, you know what target market and you know the locality, then you'll be able to roughly find out what is the rental. I think later when I share strategy 5 and 6, then you can get a better understanding, Lanyu. There is also a HDA commercial title. Is it relevant to the title consideration? Actually, HDA is normally for residential. What does HDA means is a Housing Development Act. Meaning to say it is, so far I've seen in Malaysia only, some of the countries who protect house buyer interest, especially like Malaysia. HDA is put in such a way that the developer have a regular schedule of how much they are getting paid at what progress. This is done so that they can protect the interest of the property buyer or property investor. As compared to commercial, commercial normally don't have HDA one because commercial can be like the progress can be 10-20% completion, but the release can be like 40%, 50% one. So that's why commercial tend to have a higher risk compared to residential because of this fact, no? And HDA normally is for new properties under developer. So leads me to strategy number 5. I think this one everybody heard before, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper. I'm sure you heard before location, right? Everybody knows it, but how do you use it? I think it's still relevant today, although 10 years ago is more important on picking the right location. Today it is less important. Why? It's because in KL, talking about KL, generally most of the places already have MRT, LRT. And right now, there are more people wanting to just pack your bags and move in. So why location doesn't really matter so much is because if you know how to pick so-called like grade C property and you do it up and it looks like grade B, right? So generally people will be happy because they don't have to go in, renovate, and they just want to move in with their bags. Last time, people tend to want to do everything themselves. They want to rent a unfurnished unit because rental is cheap, and then they want to furnish it themselves. Times have changed. So let me share with you what do I mean by location. In fact, this one is one of the criteria on proper evaluation of property price because location, there's 5 subcategory. Let me just share with you. Number 1 is population. Because what makes a particular location very popular is about how many people actually stay there. Or why so many people stay is because if people like that area, then tendency is that there are more people moving into the area because it's convenient. There's a lot of facility. There's a lot of shopping mall. It's near to the train station, So population is actually one key sub-criteria of location. In fact, previously I did see a statistics. I'm not sure whether it has changed or not. Malaysia, we are considered a developing country. Aging population. So for example, like Japan, right? They are considered aging population because the number of people born compared to the number of people who are retired, there are more retirees than people being born every year. So in those areas, you look at the property price, it's actually there's more supply than demand. So that's why the property price will actually stagnant or ceiling. So Malaysia, fortunately, we're still not an aging population, we're still a growing population because there's more newborn than retiree. Previously, I've seen this report that mentioned that by 2023, Malaysia will actually shift to become an aging population. I'm not sure whether the statistics have changed or not, but actually I saw that report about 2 years back. So what it means is that potentially we may shift into being a country which has more supply than demand. So when that happens, potentially we may see a situation where when you buy property, it's no longer it's always going up. It could be what's happening in US, what's happening in UK, what's happening in Japan, where not every other place when you buy a property is always appreciating, right? That's population. Second sub criteria is where is the trend. Now, where is the trend mean to say that where are the people moving to? For example, like if you are staying in the suburban area or urban area or kampong, you notice that more and more people are moving to town, right? That's why Malaysia by I think 2025 or something, they expect that KL will have a population of 10 million people, right? So where's the trend here mean to say that do you know where people are moving to, right? Previously, when Johor, Iskandar, when they developed the mega project, they expected to increase the population of Johor Bahru from 1.5 million to 3 million or 6 million people, just like Singapore. So far, we don't see that trend now. Why is this important? Is because when a particular city, let's say for example, they only have 3,000 housing, and then suddenly there's a mass entrance of migrants, right? That means basically that the demand is more than the supply, and naturally the price of the property will go up, right? So that is why you need to know where is the trend. So if you know Ho Chin Soon is a very famous guy who does map. In fact, this is related to my third subcategory, which is, do you know where is the center of gravity? So what I mean by center of gravity is, if you look at Ho Chin Soon's map, right? I don't have it here, but basically, if you look at Klang Valley, he will actually chart for you all the development in Klang Valley and outer Klang Valley. So from charting that, they basically can map out a 20-kilometer radius or 40-kilometer radius, and then they can bring to the center of the whole development. Why is this important? It's because if you know that where is the center of gravity, if you look at London, right, or Singapore, CBD, the closer you are to the center of gravity, technically those are the more expensive property. The further away from the center of gravity, technically it is supposedly to be cheaper. Unfortunately, Malaysia, it hasn't happened yet, right? About 5 years back, when I was still very active in property investment, the center of gravity was in State PJ. What's the hotel? I think it was Hilton. Yeah, surprising, right? I'm not sure where the center of gravity has moved. Need to look back at Ho Chin Soon map. If you ever have a chance, last time when they have developer exhibition and they have property exhibition, Ho Chin Soon will always have a booth, and then they always give free maps, right? So I actually benefited a lot from Ho Chin Soon. If you guys have a chance, please get one copy for yourself, and then you can actually look at it. Number fourth sub-criteria of location is income growth. Meaning to say, if there's a large population of people whose income growth is high, technically the area there, the spending power is more, and naturally it will attract more businesses to set up shop there. So I think some of you may be very familiar with Bangsa, Mont Kiara, right? These areas are generally populated with people who has high income growth, right? So why is this important is because tendency that the product in those areas are very different. Hence, when it is different in such a way, then they can command a higher price. So also why I say it's unfortunate is because in Malaysia, right, our income growth as a whole hasn't been very, very pleasant. Just to share with you, in year 2000, when I first got my first job, I was working in a management trainee in a it's an MNC bank. So I was being paid 2005 per month, year 2000. Would you like to guess how much the same bank is paying in year 2020 after 20 years? Anybody want to guess? You want to type into the comment section. The one can guess correctly can get a free gift. The answer is surprisingly between maybe 3,500 to max 4,000 per month. Yeah, so imagine 20 years. If you want to calculate that with inflation, it's double. Okay, let's say it's 4,000 for a new management trainee, fresh graduate, 4,000. Actually, very good already. 4,000 to 2,005 is 1,005. Let's say you double it. No, cannot. Basically, the increase percentage per year is much lower than our inflation. That's what I'm trying to say. So because of our income growth doesn't grow that much, hence it actually stopped the property price appreciation in Malaysia. Although we don't see it that much in the last few years, but moving forward, you will see it more apparent because it's very simple. Say if I buy the property at 300,000, right? For somebody to buy off me at 500,000, basically the income has to be of a substantial amount, right? So if our population, generally our income growth don't grow as per, don't talk about CPI, don't talk about just normal inflation, right? Basically, if you can't grow at that rate where it surpasses your expenses inflation, it literally means you can't buy the property off me at a high amount. So in that sense, actually, property appreciation will have a ceiling because of our income growth is not growing high enough. Does that make sense? And last but not least, the fifth sub-criteria is what we call boom factor. This one I learned from Faisal Rizwan. Whenever he picked a property, he makes sure that there's at least one boom factor. So what I mean by boom factor is this. If let's say that particular area has an infrastructure coming up, so for example, a new highway, not directly nearby, but you can benefit, or MRT, LRT. Like I said, those days when it's very scarce, then it makes a bigger impact. But right now, because every other place also has MRT and highway and all these things, right? So that's why location is not so much of an impact right now. The second boom factor could be amenities. So for example, like shopping mall, especially parents who, let's say if you were to move to a new area, the most important they will look at is the children's school. A lot of people are sending kids to private school and independent school, Chinese independent school. So basically, if within the area that you buy has this kind of boom factor, right? So generally, the price of it will increase. And of course, the last criteria will be loan capacity, right? Loan capacity is how much loan can you take? This one is related to the income growth, because if your income is limited, obviously the capacity to take loan is also limited, right? I just want to share this thing, talking about loan capacity, right? After I got my license in financial planning, somewhere in 2015, I started to work with high net worth individual, and I realized how the rich buy property and how the poor buy property is very different. Would you like to know? So in the past 5 years, when I study wealthy, ultra high net worth people, the way they buy property very funny one, very different one. So what I mean by that is, traditionally I was brought up in an environment where if you want to buy property, we take 90% loan. All right. But if you look at the rich or the wealthy, when they buy property, they don't take 9% loan. They will just take maximum 60%. You know why? Because normally the ultra rich have this thing which we call it cash cow. So the cash cow is so fat that it produces so much cash that they needed to put those cash into any type of investment which give them 5-6%. So the worst thing they want to do is to take 90% loan because of business. There's a tendency that business could fail and then they cannot repay. So in fact, some of them would like to buy cash, but we all know property buy cash is big. Doesn't make sense. So 60% leverage is actually quite okay one, or 50%. So I see that pattern not only to one ultra high net worth, I see it in many ultra high net worth also. They will buy 60%, buy the property, normally landed in with 60% loan. Then when I see the poor investing in property, right, they will always want to take 90% loan. So that gave me a aha, which I wanted to share with you guys. So maybe you want to relook at your property investment strategy, because if you were to take 90% loan, yes, I understand that we can fully maximize, but if your income is not strong enough, that is one reason why so many people are getting into financial difficulty, right? And I've seen enough people coming to me when I'm trying to turn around their finances. Many of them are stuck in property. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the 6 criteria. Let me recap. So the first criteria, you need to find out whether you want to buy, to keep, or flip. Second criteria, what's the right yield? Right? Later, I'm going to show you a simple calculation. Third criteria, if you were to buy to keep, who is the tenant, who is the target market? Fourth criteria, are you going for residential or commercial? Fifth criteria, location, where we break down into 5 more sub-criteria, right? How does the population affect the location, right? Where is the trend going through? The center of gravity. How does income growth affect the location and the property price? And the 5th sub-criteria was the boom factor. And last but not least, we talked about just a moment ago about loan capacity. How much loan can you take? So this is the property calculator that I've been using since 2010. And this is actually how we calculate the rental yield. And I just want to share with you some important calculation like ROI on rental versus down payment, cash on cash return. And let's talk about the property rental yield first, right? Okay, let's see. Actually, if you guys can see my screen, can you see that there is more yellow? Yellow means that you can actually play around with the figures. You can, you can change the figure. So for example, let me just share with you one of the property I bought many years ago. Then if later if we can get a live case, then we can also test it out within our community. Previously, I bought this property in Bukit Jalil at 250,000. Yeah, those days, this was in 2010, right? When I bought it at the time, right, for fully furnished unit, I could get 1,008. So what does the calculator do for you is that it already help you to calculate if there's any discount. In this case, no discount. And then what is the down payment that you need to put in, right? So if you put 10%, it will calculate at 25,000, right? So, and then from there, you also get to put in how many percent will be financed by the bank. So in this case, let's say we go with 90%, right? So then we actually have 223,750, yep, plus the mortgage and the loan, the legal fees, loan legal fee and SPA, right? So roughly it's about 229,000. Okay. follow so far? And I'm just talking about traditionally, if you're young, you can max out your loan tenure up to 30, 35 years. Those days, loan interest was 4.5%, right? So you can see here the property installment was then about 1,100 ringgit. So what you want to do is that by right, you would have find all the relevant information. These are the homework that you need to do. You need to find out what's the maintenance fee, the sinking fund, the assessment, the fire insurance, quit rent. And if you are getting external party like a property management company to help, you want to pay them certain amount, but in this case, let's say it's zero. So I want you to show you that based on this calculation, right? Can you see based on all the costs that you can see here, right? The total comes up to about 1,004, right? And you will see that there's a cash flow of 400 per month. So maybe I put a rental yield here, rental yield. So like I mentioned earlier, rental yield is the rental times 12 divided by the purchase price times 100%. As you will see, this particular example of a property I bought some time back is giving an 8% yield, right? Those days, the low interest was 4.5%, right? So that's why it is actually very safe at those days. If you can get an 8% rental yield property, most likely it will give you a cash flow, a positive cash flow. Can you see that? 1,800 ringgit minus off the installment, minus off the maintenance fee, sinking fund, assessment, fire insurance, quit rent. It comes out to 1,004. So basically, you have a 400 ringgit positive cash flow. Which another thing which I wanted to draw you to is this is the ROI, right? This calculator allows you to calculate the ROI as well. And how do we calculate the ROI here is that based on this cash flow, right? I18, yeah, divided by C22. What we did is that we divide by the upfront funds that you have to put. So in this case, let's add up the 2.1% 5250. So generally, we have to put up some money of the 10% down payment together with some lawyer fee. You look at this, right? The yearly ROI on just the rental against your down payment is already 16%. So that's the reason why a lot of people like to buy property is because number one, you're getting a good return on your cash flow from the rental. And then this particular property, recently I sold it for 460,000, right? And if you do the math, right, there's another capital appreciation that you can actually potentially earn from. So that's the intention of what I want to cover today's session, is because I want to make sure that you guys know how to pick the right property rather than being motivated by the developer or the seller to buy a property which may not be very good, but because there's a lot of incentive, like no money down or cash back, cash out, you know, all these are just illusions. What you want to make sure is whether the property you pick the right property, you know. Okay. So I mean, if there's any question or if you guys want me to give another simulation on this, yeah, you can give me or you can type into the comment section. I'll be happy to do this simulation for you. In fact, this is actually the free gift that I wanted to give out. How many of you would actually like this calculator, which I've been using for the past 10 years? It's definitely very helpful for property virgin, not very helpful for property seasoned property investor, maybe because they have their own Excel already, right? If you want, type the gift at the comment section, and then me and my team, we will make sure that we'll reach out to you and send you this calculator for free. How do you like that? Okay. So this is the second last thing that I wanted to share. And the last thing I wanted to share is how do you calculate a cash on cash ROI? This ROI here is talking about rental ROI, right? Let's just say that the property after 1 year from 250,000, it has increased to 275,000, increased by 10%, right? I just want to show you there are many ways of calculating and that's the reason why a lot of people like to buy property. So technically, if the property have gained 10%, right? Can you see that after 1 year, the gain is 25,000, and based on this outlay that you have put, right, which is 30,000. So the cash on cash return, right, is actually very impressive because what you're essentially getting, can you see here? You take the return on paper, divide by your outlay times 100%. You're getting 82% a year. This is the power of leverage, right? So in fact, this afternoon when I was sharing with the Double Happiness group, why most of the people are getting wealthier is when they buy property is because of this leverage effect. Leverage effect can work both ways. It can actually help you, if you buy correctly, it will help you go up, increase your net worth. But if you buy wrongly, it's also will beat you down much faster. So yeah, Charlene, thank you. Glad that you won this. Yep. So I hope I benefited you guys today. Okay, so if you guys want a free gift, just leave your name, type gift, and then me and my team will reach out to you. I hope today I've answered some of your questions. I just gave a very simple 6 steps criteria to pick. If you guys think this is beneficial, do share it with more people. All right, see you guys. Good night. Have a safe evening. Bye.